Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, we're continuing our Evil Elite series where I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes as the Great Awakening continues. And our top story this week is the continued arrests of these large-scale child trafficking networks and the connections to these satanic pedophile rings, which we'll get to. But breaking just this morning was this clip that's doing the rounds of Macron, Starmer and Mers caught on video hiding a white bag and a little spoon here on the table. And you can see this clip, this better on this angle here, where they're trying to hide the paraphernalia as they realise cameras are still rolling behind the scenes at this meeting. So I'm interested to see what's going to come of this. And more people are waking up to the fact that all our leaders around the world are just puppets for the cabal pushing out this globalist agenda and not really who they appear to be on camera, and certainly not representing the views of those that they're meant to. But let's get to some more of this tension in the Middle East, where these Israeli strikes on Yemen's international airport here being completely destroyed, civilian planes blown to pieces, and this continues obviously the genocide and complete annihilation of Gaza. But there's been a bit of a change of tune here from the US, and plenty of people have been critical of Israel's dominant stance that they have over all of US politics and so on. But Trump's started to change his tune just these last few days, and these reports coming out that are deciding to cut ties with Netanyahu and his associates are arrogant and trying to push around the president. So this is very, very different to the Trump we saw a few weeks ago, pushing in Netanyahu's chair, constantly saying how Israel is our greatest ally. And we know obviously with AIPAC and all the donations, that influence that they have that I just mentioned. So we'll see what comes of this. Reports that Pete Hegseth also cancelled his trip over to Israel. Reports now that Trump might even recognise the Palestinian state rather than that clip that he shared AI a few weeks ago, basically turning Gaza into luxury resorts and that type of thing. So yeah, we've got to watch what they do, not just what they say, but this is absolutely a 180 from the position that they've had over the past few weeks. So Simon Dixon's really good on this topic, as well as all the crypto stuff, but his take here is that Zionism is no longer profitable for the military-industrial complex, and too many people are waking up to just how brutal that genocide has been throughout Palestine and Gaza and so on. So yeah, watch this space. We'll see what comes of this. But as always, there's a political angle and the deep ties. And we know that they're trying to drag us towards World War III between all these large-scale Axis superpowers. So love or hate Trump, as long as we keep getting these negotiations and peace deals, I don't think anyone can say that that's a bad thing, and we want to avoid World War III at all costs. So markets love this. Crypto's been ripping as well this week as these trade negotiations look to be progressing, which is really great between the superpowers. But then as we're starting to get these deals on certain fronts like Ukraine and Russia and hopefully in the Middle East there, things are ramping up between Pakistan and India. Again, there's so much more to this story. Privatization of water supplies to both major countries. We've got manufacturing and chip production. And then you've got, Russia and China's involvement with weapons and who's going to back who as these attacks have been going on between these two superpowers. So again, we don't want things to heat up there. Both of these are nuclear armed powers that have been openly speaking about using nuclear weapons. Just as we saw, the UK and France talk about that their willingness to use nukes in Ukraine. It's just insane that our world leaders are openly talking about nuking each other at the moment. But don't forget who was overthrown. So if you're a fellow cricket tragic out there, you'll know Imran Khan, who is a fantastic guy, and he was really trying to push back against the deep state and the cabal. And sure enough, he was overthrown. We saw huge rallies in the streets of Pakistan at the time with obviously the people being very pro Imran Khan. But if you go against the cabal, maybe the Biden State Department or whoever it was orchestrated this coup to remove him, and now we're in this situation where there's more, I guess, aggressors in charge. But Trump did come out and say he's been getting involved, and there is a ceasefire deal between India and Pakistan that's currently on right now. We've got that Zelensky and Putin meeting I just mentioned, and the trade deal with China. So look, as long as we're avoiding World War III, it's a good thing by me. Now, this is something that hit a lot of nerves for different people for different reasons, but this was Trump dressed as the Pope, and I've been talking about the pillars of the global cabal, and we need to dismantle, the Vatican, the royals, as well as the Illuminati or the deep state in America and Israel, these black ops and intelligence agencies and so on. So that's really the three pillars that kind of have so much wealth and control over the world from all these banking families, ultimately at the top. But so interesting that Pope Francis was declared officially dead at the symbolic age of 88 on Easter Sunday, as I covered in last week's episode. But if all these archives and the blackmail files and a lot of this is true, that some of these people are saying it held in the Vatican, it was, I spoke about how I'd be super interested to see who they actually pick. And sure enough, we got a US Pope. So I don't think that any of this is a coincidence with everything happening. People were quick to point out that Pope Leo himself has been involved in, as always, these horrific crimes against children that seem to be so prominent throughout, the Catholic Church, and as well as all the elites, which we've been covering for so long now. But watch this story to see what comes out of all this. So ultimately, this all ties in with things like the Diddy and Epstein network. They're the tip of the iceberg, as I've been saying for a while now. And we do have these documentary producers and plenty of people coming out just talking about this pipeline of children from Haiti, and these natural disasters, as well as through Ukraine, the trafficking, all the way to the Vatican. And these are the people that are, shipping these kids around and doing these sick things and getting them for the elite. A lot of these people that are, Satanists and blackmailed and all that type of thing. It's just crazy stuff what's happening behind closed doors for so long now. But this is General Flynn talking about those missing 300,000 migrant children. I did a deep dive into this on Rumble with Ryan Matter, and more people are now starting to talk about this and all the links to the elites. None of this is a coincidence. So thankfully, we are starting to get more documents come out. This was a third batch of Epstein docs just dropped in court, 400 pages, naming, the Clintons, Harvey Weinstein, Prince Andrew, a lot of these big names. We've also had the Diddy trial start, where they've had 200 names of high-profile people. So these things are starting to drip feed and hopefully be prosecuted effectively through the legal system. So this is Pam Bondi and Kash Patel announcing the rescue of 115 kids at the hand of these predators. This is all part of the 764 satanic terror network that traffics a lot of these kids. A lot of these crimes are apparently caught on camera. They've got the video footage now of tens of thousands of victims involved in this stuff that they're all working through. Again, it's good that they're stating all of this stuff, but we actually need to see arrests and prosecution. And I'm hoping we are definitely seeing that at the sort of gang level and small level, but we need to see the rest of these higher ups because, nobody quite has a body count like the Clintons and all the mysterious deaths around a lot of whistleblowers and people that were trying to come out and sound the alarm on this. Virginia Giuffre's father's come out and said she doesn't think that was a suicide, that I covered last week. And again, this is all connected to Prince Andrew and the royals. And this was another good investigative piece by James O'Keefe here, where this royal advisor was on camera here talking about Prince Andrew and the things that he has been caught doing, the ties to Epstein and underage kids and all that sort of stuff. So it's starting to get out there, still not to the general public, but it's certainly circulating in the alternate media space, which is what we want to see. Steven Seagal, famous actor, also dropping plenty of truth bombs about Ukraine. I've spoken about how it's not really the war that the media presents to us at all. This is so much darker involvement here with what's going on with the human trafficking, organ trafficking, drugs, bioweapons, all this type of thing that the truth is finally coming out about. Tulsi Gabbard's also been exposing this, talking about the biolabs and adrenochrome factories in Ukraine as well. So this all ties together, and hopefully we're going to see this come out with, RFK talking about this as well, the missing kids last week on camera for the mainstream. So yeah, it's just great developments to see. Now, all of this also ties into underground traffic networks, deep underground military bases, and this was a sitting member of Congress giving us a glimpse at some of these passageways they have to these underground tunnels that connect all these different buildings, and high-speed rail. Covered Catherine Austin Fitz last week talking about the missing $21 trillion from the budget that has been used to build all these multi-story deep underground military bases and these transport networks that nobody knows about. Okay, so let's get into some health-related stuff. This is Dr. Ben Marble talking about the blood supply of America and the spike protein levels we are seeing, and how people that are unvaccinated are getting transfusions and then developing these blood clots and heart attacks. Now, some places have actually introduced legislation here, Utah advancing this bill to allow patients to actually choose unvaccinated blood. So again, I've spoken about this at length. Guys, do everything you can to look after your health. If you did get those shots, some batches were different to others, you could be fine. But if you are struggling, again, look out that spike detox protocol. I've got another fantastic doctor on the show any day now that I'll be recording, where we're going to be diving deep into fasting and health and all the key things that I've spoken about, as I've been promising you a deep dive into how to become your best, healthiest self. So this is RFK here talking about how Bill Gates is scheduled to face a civil trial in Europe. So I believe this is in Netherlands International Crime Court for lying about the public, about the trials, the safety and efficacy, all that type of stuff. So amazing to see, hopefully, him and Fauci. Again, good that this is happening, but we need to see actual prosecutions and arrests. This is RFK Jr. again talking about the MMR vaccine and having millions of these particles of from aborted fetal tissue, the DNA fragments. So fact check here by Grok is saying that this isn't true, but don't forget that all this has been coming out about the COVID jab as well, and it's been a lot of Australian scientists that have been exposing this the most about the DNA fragments and all this stuff. That again, if you asked anyone to fact check that over the last 5 years, they would have said, no, that's true, wild conspiracy. But now the science is actually coming out, so you can't just rely on these AI fact checks for everything, guys. You got to dig a little bit deeper. This is Dr. Pierre Corey, who's brilliant to follow as well. He's just talking about this whole, once a lot of doctors were woken up to the level of corruption and just the covering up of the data and, absolute lies that have been told, these doctors are saying they're so angry to waking up for how long they've been lied to. All the books written about these vaccines are just false. We're starting to see, RFK's funding these studies where we're actually going to get versus placebo and that type of thing. So the truth is finally going to come out around all of this. And it's no coincidence that I think at this time we've seen, George Soros step down with all his wealth, Warren Buffett, a lot of these big wigs that were, powerful people in control of these NGOs that are all pushing out this global agenda. And now we've got Bill Gates Foundation has officially announced it'll be shutting down. So this is amazing to see. They're going to invest $200 billion. I'm not sure where that's all going to go. We'll wait and see. But fascinating stuff. And another Bill Gates related project here. This is biotech, Oxytech, talking about these genetically modified mosquitoes that were released into Florida. And now for the first time in 20 years, we've got cases of malaria in Florida. So once again, none of this is a coincidence, and hopefully this is all coming to an end. And this is Trump's new Surgeon General, Casey Means, talking about the health industry and all this woke stuff that's happening in medical schools. So she looks like she's not pulling any punches either. And she also got into here how all this US farmland being sprayed with pesticides, which are strongly linked to autism, ADHD, all these other biological dysfunctions that you get by having these things in your body. And this ties in perfectly with this amazing interview I did with Dr. Christian Bogner. If you haven't checked this out, guys, the success he's having reversing autism and psychosis by healing the gut and removing heavy metals and different toxins from the body, the protocols they're doing, and the thousands of patients they've now treated, this is the future of true medicine, where we're actually healing people and not doing band-aid solutions. Another fantastic study here on magic mushrooms I wanted to throw in, some positive effects on Parkinson's disease from a single dose of psilocybin, improving mood, motor function, and memory in these patients that lasted 4 weeks. And we know their capacity to regenerate neuro connections and that within the brain with all the research that we've now got around psychedelics as well. So always positive to see things that come from nature having such profound effects on mental health, as well as these, these physical conditions as well. Okay, so Dr. John Campbell, he's been another amazing one that's risen to fame by talking the truth around COVID and a lot of other things recently. So he's talking about these UK experiments where they're now openly dimming to block out the sun. The sabotage on agricultural yields I spoke about last week, vitamin D and immune system connections. It's just mind-boggling how much some of these countries have pushed solar, and now I think Australia's even got plans to do this as well, officially recognised with this company. Not to say that there hasn't been a lot of cloud seeding operations happening already for years. Last week I covered that story that made the mainstream news in Tasmania, where they got caught doing cloud seeding in 2016, a month before we had the worst floods in 40 years. So this stuff happens here too, very much so. And just crazy that, again, the fear that they're trying to push on people. And this just shows back in 2017 when they're reporting on the weather here. And now with all these temperatures being far lower, it's bright red, trying to scare people into thinking, it's going to be crazy hot and there's nothing we can do about it. We have to dim the sun. I don't know how anyone with half of their common sense, half a brain, can think that any of this is normal, and spraying one little region to dim the sun is not going to, even if it was true with the global warming, and that is just not the way to stop it. It's insanity. Something straight out of a sci-fi movie. So this is Elon here talking about the widespread slaughter in Europe, and we've definitely seen an increased number of attacks. We're starting to see this here in Australia. Now the election's out of the way here, we're probably going to go down the exact same path as what we've seen across Europe, where we get continually flooded by migrants. A lot of these are radicalized and disproportionately end up increasing violent crimes against women, all these brutal things. And it's just insane that this is all part of that great replacement theory that I've spoken about. So as Elon says here, if you just keep extrapolating this trend, this is the plan to basically wipe out European history and native Europeans in the West, to cause more chaos by the cabal. Over to Spain now, where you're now going to get a 150k fine for citizens that don't give 24 hours notice before withdrawing 3,000 in cash. So you need permission to get your own money. Obviously, this is super pro Bitcoin and everything crypto related, as we've seen time and time again over the years. It's just going to force people more to go into this system where you are your own bank. And this is interesting advertising here from HSBC, where your DNA will be your data. And this is the technocracy, AI, smart city, all this stuff I talk about. This is the direction that they're pushing us, and they see your DNA as software that they can upgrade and use another digital piece of tech that they ultimately want to merge with technology through those microchips and AI that we've been talking about. So this is Nita Farhani from the World Economic Forum, suggesting that these brain sensors will be embedded in headphones and other devices. Will soon be able to keep tabs on your mental state. So how are you feeling, if you're tired, paying attention or whatever. But don't forget, this is going to go both ways as well with some of the technology that we've now got, where different frequencies and whatever can actually affect your mood, as well as tracking what you're thinking ultimately. And we've got this technology already. I've spoken about this before. There's an Australian company that made a computer out of human neural tissue, and we've now got China building a robot with a human brain by growing a cerebral organoid brain and then connecting it into a robot. So it's just insane how far all this tech has coming, and how hard they're pushing to try and meld humans and nature with digital artificial tech that they can ultimately control and have more power over you from. So thankfully we do have some good politicians pushing it back against this agenda. So this is Gregor's Braun tearing down the European Union flag and wiping issues with it, and saying that this is Poland, not Brussels, and globalism is losing. Fantastic to see. Got the US government warning Australia to stop censoring free speech. We know that Trump and the US have a lot of power over trade and tariffs and whatnot. So if Australia push down this path, it'll be interesting to see how much the US is going to push back against it. And the same things are happening here as everywhere in the world, where we've got law enforcement, judges, politicians, all just rightfully involved in this, these crimes against children and some of this sick stuff being bought out by corporates and globalists, blackmailed, and all the same things, which is why the decisions that they're making don't represent what's best for Australia and their people. And Australia, as I said, is the testbed for this rollout of the New World Order globalism Agenda 2030. And this is definitely looking like the playbook that they want to bankrupt Australia, because Australia has done so well from the China boom and commodities that we're not, as a country, deeply in debt like a lot of other Western places are. So it seems to be this push to have more and more people in the public sector, and Australia is at the top of the list by an absolute mile here. in terms of how many people per population actually work for the government. And the other arm to all of this is the NDIS, which has just got out of control. I think it's 1 in 5 people now on the NDIS. The costs involved, just the inefficiency of the work. You talk to people that are doing 8-hour shifts just watching a kid play video games and getting paid $70 an hour, whatever. This is where our tax dollars are going, and there's plenty of people out there that obviously need help in healthcare and community care, which is fine, but this system is just being exploited left, right and center, and it's going to be the means to bankrupt this country versus others, and I think that's going to be the playbook over the next 3 years if nothing changes. Not only that, we've got these new taxes, so they want you to own nothing and be happy. These new unrealized tax gains, which they're talking about on super amounts over 3 million. But as always, that's just the first step. And then it's, the next thing and the next thing. And the way it's written, it's so easy for them to now come after the increased values on your home and forcing you to potentially sell. Not only that, we've got more and more of a push for people to put their super into property. So this is all going to be fascinating to watch how this affects the property market, as we just can't build enough homes in time to keep up with this immigration in Australia. But that's it for today's episode, guys. Head over to nuggetsnews.com.au for more info on everything we do. Otherwise, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.